Hello?
Hi, hello, Bosch.
Howdy!
Hi there. So I wanted to have a Are you aware of what I was planning on discussing?
Nope, I have no knowledge whatsoever
Okay.
besides somebody having characterized you as a fascist.
Okay. So the thing that I wanted to discuss with you was particularly what the nature of what fascism is as a doctrine. So first, I want to begin with what is your core defining what's your definition of fascism
I,
as a doctrinal ideology or and we're talking about we're not specifically talking about national socialism or anything. So Nazism. We're not specifically talking about any um, individual, branch of fascism. We're talking about the general uh, guiding ideology of fascism. What do you think is a definition you'd go
yeah,
by?
so I'm generally of the opinion that fascism is an emergent characteristic of certain social and economic forces, and less so something that people pursue directly as a doctrine. But if I had to say it was like a doctrine, if we're using very strict language to describe its meaning, then yeah, fascism would be like a class collaborationist state where the capitalist infrastructure is folded into the power of the state, and there's no like class antagonism is not allowed within the purview of that economic discourse. You have like an authoritarian leadership that relies on hardcore populism, ethno nationalism, and xenophobia to propel their nation to glory that they once had at some point in the imagined past. That tends to be like the doctrinal elements of
Right.
fascism.
And for the most part, I'd say, but because I've studied fascism, I believe for a while. So I think that one thing that I'd agree with there is that there's a hierarchical basis behind it. It's not particularly one thing that you said that did interest me as a truth is that it's not particularly geared towards, and if I believe this is what you said, not particularly geared towards any particular defensive class. It's more so geared towards abandoning class warfare and wars within the context of classes. That's like a key component of fascism. Is it actually rejects um, one thing that you did say to as an when you added to that point is that is fascism capitalist? I don't necessarily think that it's a particularly capitalist doctrine because it tends to adhere to the idea of abandoning a sort of social stratification within economic bases. So it's more focused on elevating the cultural status
Well,
of a nation
I don't
or the
think it
cultural.
abandons those distinctions. I just think it forces people to stop talking about them. In Nazi Germany, the capital leaders were very well rewarded for their service to the state, and they were granted many privileges by the party. It just wasn't something that was talked about much because it wasn't considered to
Right,
be
but
success in the purview of economic, performance. It was success in that they were able to serve their state more effectively than others.
wouldn't you say that that particular service is more done in the and again Hitler was a shall I say a politician of sorts. So he was able to balance socialistic rhetoric and capitalistic rhetoric um, in a way that
Well, yeah, he lied. Yeah, he lied to a fuck ton of people to try and get them to.
he did
Yeah.
he was dishonest in service in a lot of ways.
Are
I'd
you a
say that
fascist?
I'm a fascist. Yeah.
Ah,
I believe in and now here's the thing. I not to go too off topic, but I was I take a lot of like from paternalistic conservatism is
I do. Yes.
right. So I have taken some principles from there, and I think that I've added that to a lot of my philosophy, but I still define myself as a fascist because here's the thing. I think that what makes fascism seem, and this ties back to Hitler, what a lot of Hitler's contradictory statements. I think that fascism seems confusing because it borrows. It's a third positionist ideology, right? It doesn't follow, or that's at least what we claim. What we claim to be third positionist in that we don't follow a direct left or right paradigm or any left or right system. This even while we would be broadly described as social conservative, we don't. Our economic views are more towards whatever is compatible with the conditions for the time.
Yeah, which
So
is
if
another
we're
way of saying you guys don't really give a fuck about anything except like elevating whichever group of people you feel you should privilege over others. That's why like the points of doctrinal fascism are very, very difficult to nail down, because like no because like fascist governments aren't consistent either. There isn't really like a hard like set list. What's the definition of capitalism? Private ownership of the means of production. What's the definition of socialism? Public control of the means of production, the abolition of the commodity form. These are very easy definitions. But fascism is just this loose amalgamation of reactionary and
Oh,
authoritarian thought.
oh, here's the thing. So I'm going to finish with the point I was mentioning about fascism's economic standpoint. I'll say that fascism in particular was geared. So there was a lot of social policies that were passed under fascism. I've read Hitler's Revolution by Richard Teeter. I don't know if you're aware of that. What he covers in his economic view of fascism is that a lot of social, and I'll give you a few examples. There are social, I put this in strong quotes, like social welfare policies, not with the basis of establishing a welfare state. There were social welfare policies within the regime that particularly handled, like for example, with mothers. So
Hmm.
motherhood was a strong component of the regime. There's a lot of focus on social welfare policies like breaks and for mothers, as well as policies that like childcare policies. So there were several key components like cares and easier access to care. There's also a quite bizarre point about Hitler mentioning like increasing the size of like with new construction of houses, size of like bathtubs to actually make it easier for mothers to nurse children. There's all these different like, which is kind of an odd
Right.
point,
Well,
but
yeah, yeah.
there's all
They'll
these
yeah
different.
they'll utilize state and corporate power in any way that serves like the broader interest of the state. Yeah.
But it's not the state; it's more
Well,
so
the
the
people,
state.
sure. Yeah.
I'd say so. If you read, I was talking in a rehab chat about this with a couple of people. Have you heard of Concept of the Political by Carl Schmitt?
I have not.
Okay, so I find this interesting because Carl Schmitt was actually similar to Martin Heidegger, with his Freiburg Institute. Like people, a lot of leftists, particularly from the Frankfurt, took inspiration from Heidegger, Carl Schmitt, with their ideas of like the concept of the political, which is one of his main pieces of literature. And what that covers is that with things like social, the main contention that I believe fascism has with with the state in particular, particularly with social liberalism. This is like what we'd consider now the state when we refer to like most of what the states are now in the West, which is socially liberal countries. Refer to um, the particular faults within those states is that states are far too functionary, they're far too orderly, and that it relies primarily on procedure. Right? So
If I
constitutional
may I
republics.
ask you something? Are you trying to sell me on fascism? I've never met a theory nerd on the right before. I thought this was something exclusive to the tankies, but I'll admit you've exposed me to a new facet of the world. So
Right? And
do you mean
was
to?
kind of my goal coming in, and it's not that I was particularly trying to sell fascism to any particular range of folks on the left, but I just have interest in exploring these ideas with you because when and I meant to get to this later, but when I was talking to when I was looking at some of your streams, and I've actually watched you for a while now, because I find a lot of what you say actually kind of interesting.
I haven't converted you
So
yet.
I wouldn't say convert, but you have certainly sparked. I actually listen to a lot of things on like multiple facets of political left and right because I find them interesting. But I'd say that one thing that sparked my curiosity was when you were talking to some streamers about Nick Fuentes and those kind of figures. I wouldn't consider Nick Fuentes or any of those kind of figures like I know they cover like there's a lot of intersectionality between like there's a lot of etymological association between what Nick Fuentes says about like the JQ stuff that we share. When we cover aspects like the Jewish question and its association with hierarchy, economics, blah 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 blah. But a lot of what those guys do when they're talking about that is not. I wouldn't consider them Nazis or fascists. I mean, would you? Would you consider those folks? And I get that there's an end goal to it, meaning that like could
I mean,
pipeline to fascism.
Nick Fuentes is pretty much just a neo-Nazi, right? Like,
Well,
The
I'd say that Nick Fuentes, Patrick Buchanan-esque paleocon.
Okay,
I
but
wouldn't consider.
here's the difference though. Because fascism is necessarily idiosyncratic, I don't think we get much utility from hyperspecificity when it comes to categorizing the views of people who subscribe to an ideology that doesn't really have a consistent ideological basis. All we can really do is broadly describe the things they believe in and assign them labels to be branded. So when I call Nick Fuentes a Nazi, I'm not saying that he believes in like Nordic, paganism being the ancestral right of his home people or any of that shit. I'm
No,
saying
no,
that
no. I
he's
get
an
it.
anti-Semite who wants a white ethno-state, who wants to defend the fatherland with,
Oh,
authoritarianism.
I don't. I consider that a. I don't know if he believes this, and again, he could, but I don't know if that's effective as basis because we're talking. So if we were to establish something like similar to in America, we're talking about going back to the origins. We're talking about a Protestant, usually somewhat wealthy white person representing a movement, not a Catholic, you know, dare I say, Castizo mestizo Hispanic man, right? And who's also half Italian. So I mean, do I think that he's fighting for the key ideas of white culture, or do I more so believe that he's trying to defend what white culture has produced?
It's not a meaningful difference to me. I'm never, like, in my job at least, I'm never going to be arguing with somebody like Fuentes and call him a Nazi, and then I'm going to, like, in some way impugn my effectiveness by having it pointed out to me that, oh no, well, a Nazi would be oriented around specifically like Aryan supremacy, whereas he's trying to protect more this like neo Protestant like American whiteness, which isn't so much ethnic as it is racial. I just the idiosyncrasies of this system make it impossible to nail down any one definition. That's why these fuckers change their names so often. Paleocon, Tradcon, Identitarian, White Nationalist. Like they'll constantly jump from term to term using
And
whatever they
listen,
think will get
I
them in the least amount of shit
agree.
possible.
I agree with criticism about the alt right. Okay,
All
I
right,
agree
yeah,
with
that
them
one. Yeah.
because I think that the alt right is just it's a subculture of a lot of confused people. Most of them are around my age, and they're very confused, and they're just looking for answers. But what I'm trying to cover here is particular definition. So I want to go back to what I was saying earlier, and I just want to provide like the clearest definition possible.
Hmm.
What I think fascism is at its core. I think that fascism idea that the collective, and this is like the most simple definition I've formulated, but fascism is the idea that the collective group is fundamentally more important than the individual, right? So if we go by that basis and we ignore the intersectionality between race, culture, or all of that, because not all of fascists are racist, not all of them are ethno-culturalists or whatever you want to call it. A
Well,
lot
yeah,
of them,
because it's just a loose collection of ideas. Though I would
well, it's
struggle to
not
find a
loose.
fascist who wasn't racist.
There are plenty of Marxists who, for example, there's a theory by I forgot exactly who proposed it, but the idea of universal prostitution, right? There are many of like communist associations,
Sounds pretty
which was an
based.
idea. Right? Like a lot of those ideas, and then there are people on the left that also heavily criticize them, right? There's a lot of I wouldn't call it so much a fascist being a loose collection of things. I'd call it a ideology, really, all ideologies at their core being somewhat radically
Yeah,
on a
just like what
spectrum.
does
But
this like what does this mean to me? Like if my goal is
so
to annihilate you people from the planet with debate and the free marketplace of ideas, what does this degree of hyper specificity do for me? Because I feel like I'm always going to hit the same beats every time I talk to a fash, no matter what they call themselves. It doesn't matter what part of the world they're from. It doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what particular race they're a part of. It doesn't matter which country they're in right now. It always
no, no, no.
feels like they have the same
I'm just
basic
saying
talking
that.
points.
No, I'm just saying that. Again, I said there's intersection between talking points. But people like Nick Fuentes not believe a hierarchical structural system of a fascist state. They just do not. They do not believe in like the authoritarian aspects of fascism. They don't believe that a state should control and regulate the economy.
Yeah, he totally does. Nick Fuentes has talked about how he believes that the state needs to shut down immigration and the state needs to shut down like international trade so we can be like an isolationist state. And he's also said
But
that
that's more.
his loyalty is to the United States president, to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States, which is fundamentally authoritarian. If he believes that Trump should supersede the law of the land, yeah, I'd say he meets those pretty well.
I'd say that on the regarding the immigration aspects, yes, but I wouldn't say that Fuentes fits the bill. Someone who's willing to use legislative means of enforcement through like a strict state hierarchy to enforce his principles. I think
But
that
wait,
he's
but he celebrated the
going to
immigration
compromise with
ban.
capitalism.
But he
Well,
celebrated the immigration ban.
the immigration ban was done within the context of social democracy, social liberalism, social democratic forces were able to achieve that. A
Yeah, but
fascist system goes beyond
yeah,
that.
but just because you support authoritarian measures through a democratic system doesn't mean you're not going to support authoritarian measures through an autocratic system.
I didn't say that. I said that people like Fuentes, again, I prefaced before that people like Fuentes can be a pipeline
I
to
don't know if you can
fascist
get much
ideas.
further right than Fuentes. Like, also, the fascists back in 1930s Germany were not also talking about how they just want like one dude to rule over them and control the
Oh, they
state.
were. They were. It was in the fascist doctrine.
Yeah,
I'll
but
link it to you if
yeah,
necessary.
but like you said, Hitler lied. Like when he talked
No, no,
about
no, no. But he never lied about that. He never lied about democracy. In fact, in one of his speeches, he referred to democracy as the direct evil.
but
I mean, you
Fuentes has
can't
said
really argue with
democracy
that.
is evil.
I don't. You know, if you point out to me where he said something
I mean, I don't
like
have like clips,
that,
but
that's
he
sort of
like pretty sure Fuentes has shit talked democracy like quite a bit. It doesn't matter to me because in a practical sense, the application of people like Fuentes being in power would be an authoritarian system. There's no way somebody like Fuentes is going to take power and then just democracy continues as always. You know.
So it would be a strict. It'd be like what? Be like a crude. The way I'm going to say this might sound vague and more confusing, but I'd say it would be like a crude democracy in the sense that you'd be using authoritarian principles on par with trying to fit them in, circle jerk them into democracy, which I think is a lot of what the alt right is trying to do.
Well, you work
It
within the systems you're in, right? But if they took power, I doubt
right.
they would preserve those systems. They'd try to break them.
I don't. I've talked to, and again, I mean, I don't know what degree you're knowledgeable with alt right communities. I've talked to people on the alt right, A lot of them are very uh, vehemently opposed to any sort of state, um, like actual state hierarchical control. They are not open to censorship. And even when it is their side censoring, I see a lot of vision on actually agreeing with that. So there are some people in alt right that would agree,
I think the
like
issue is that
censorship.
they're stupid. Like that's the
They're
thing.
just
They're
they are, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, they're
consider them
stupid,
almost
but it
like
doesn't matter because if they got power, the same thing would happen anyway. Anytime people like that in any part of the world at any point in history take power, they turn authoritarian. They're just too stupid to understand the end state of their beliefs. That's one of the reasons why I criticize the alt-right for not even understanding their own political arguments. They don't even know where they're leading. But like again, like what pragmatic difference does this mean to me? Like these people's beliefs are still reprehensible. Your beliefs are
well,
still
I
reprehensible.
I'd say that you are correct, and I'm not trying to sound like nefarious by saying this, like saying ooh, like this is gonna lead to our idea of like these stupid alt writers are gonna like lead to our way of thinking. But I do agree that it is a pipeline that can lead to our ways of thinking. But I think that when you talk about people like um, Fuentes and those types, or talk to people like that, constantly like use the language of conflating them with neo Nazis.
Well, yeah,
It
they
takes
are.
away it takes away the like if you're going to combat our ideology, it takes away the impact. In
I
my opinion.
don't,
It takes away the impact.
but you guys lie about your terms all the time. So the extent to which I
Oh,
ascribe to whatever specific terminology you would prefer to be called by doesn't seem to have
who
any
lies about their
effect.
terms?
Like
Right?
I
I
said,
mean,
with the identitarian via white nationalist via alt right via like all these like I've heard like a dozen terms that all mean the exact same thing. They all defer to the exact same set of beliefs. It just reminds me of that Nick Fuentes like fan convo I had. Like they came on and we talked, and they were
Thank
like,
you, right?
dude, I'm not a neo-Nazi. I'm a traditionalist conservative, okay? And then I talked with them for a little bit, and then they started denying the Holocaust. Like, it happens every time.
Right.
It's the exact same patterns.
Eh,
And keep
Yeah,
in mind, historically, neo-Nazi groups in the United States have also been fairly anti-state. They usually camped out and fought with the FBI. But the media still calls them neo-Nazi groups because fundamentally they believe the same things the original Nazis did.
and I'm not saying it's gonna lead to a different. I'm not saying it's totally it wouldn't lead to some people converting to fascism, but ultimately I think that what you're seeing here is you're seeing more of like a paleo conservative 1950s model of resurgence and ideas. And fascism is just one of those things that's tucked behind the alt
It
right.
just doesn't like it. Like, I wouldn't accept this from the left either. Like, if a leftist came up to me and they were like, "I'm not a socialist. I'm not. I'm just an economic redistributist who believes in
Right,
tactically
yeah.
reorganizing the hierarchy of the workplace." Like, I would also call them on their shit. Like that's what this feels like to me. But if
And
you're,
you're talking to
if your
someone.
prescription is like gatekeeping fascists, then like that's fine. Like, if you want to go to like the alt right groups and tell them they're all idiots who aren't doing it right, like I'm okay with that. Like, I'm
And you're talking to someone who's an honest fascist. I'm not. I've actually gone. You're just talking to someone who's an honest
Hey,
fascist with.
don't break your arm fucking jerking yourself off, okay? That you're still a bad person, but I do appreciate the
I'm,
honesty.
well, I'm not denying that. Like you'll view me as a bad person. I'm just saying that's the views I prescribe to myself. That's not. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. Being honest, like you say in your streams often, that you're very honest about, in terms of integrity, about what you believe in. And I'm trying to be very honest as well in what I believe in, or not try, but I am being
Okay,
honest.
so well then here's my
So
question for you. What would you do to the United States of America? Let's say that you had let's say that you had a political party with some indeterminate percentage support and you wanted to do something to the United States of America. What would you do? How would you make the country better? How would you MAGA?
well, first of all, I'd say that if you were to enter um, through democratic means and not try to stage a coup, which is obviously nearly impossible in a country as like infrastructurally developed as the United States, you need so you need a basis of appeal, but you need a point where democracy is at its weakest. And I think that we're approaching that point, not there yet, not nearly there yet, but we're approaching that point where democracy is at its pivotal point of just near collapse, where people are completely have distrust in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need a point where democracy is at its weakest and demonstrated its weakest in social liberal principle, where judicial processes or the senatorial or the people in the Senate or the congressional committees are just not able to satisfy social issues,
Mm-hmm.
impact every aspect of our lives. Something like fascism comes in appeal, and you have people that are unable to answer these questions, and you need a system that reverts back to a set of hierarchies that just aren't being addressed. In my opinion, social liberalism works for a while, then it just stops working because it's it's almost like it runs on battery,
Mm-hmm.
right? It runs by means of, and it can't really necessarily. It has points where it recharges a little bit. It always depletes worthiness because its system is a set of functions. People that are within the system are not prophetically going to profess their care for the needs. Fascism instates a hierarchical order that is modeled based on culture. It's based on the belief that the group is ultimately the the core aspect of what produces any sort of cultural vitality within a nation. The group is the most important aspect. That's ultimately what's emphasized. What you do not see, and social liberalism fails to satisfy any of those hierarchical demands. It generally is associated with whenever there's like any sort of authoritarianism prevails in culture, it's generally associated with a renaissance. And what people need is when people are looking for fascism, they're looking for that renaissance again.
Okay.
looking for that.
So, what you would be interested in doing is taking advantage of a weak moment in democracy where the people lose faith in the ability for institutions that already exist to solve their problems. You would try to sweep in and get yourself elected on popular rule based on the idea that you'll return America to an imagined point of former glory, and that you'll do it by circumventing the degenerate and weak democratic systems that have failed the people. Then, once you're in that position of power, you'll try to secure a national culture and then try to align the interests of the state with the imagined interests of the people. Is that correct?
Um, I'd say that that is a correct assessment of basically the crux of what would occur. Um, there's a little bit more depth, I'd say, but that is a correct basic assessment, I believe.
All right.
In like a,
Why should we do any of that?
um, why should we do any of that? Well, it's a complex question, but I believe that if we were to, the reason why we should really approach system this way, or the collapse of democracy this way, is because um, exactly
But
a
like
point.
sell me in it. Like I'm an American citizen. I'm not just a streamer, you know. I vote. I'm a big white guy. Um, I'm pan. I don't know if that would square with your system. Like, what's my motivation? See, I know
Yeah.
democracy has its problems. It really,
So
really
sorry,
does.
are you asking like what your motivation as an average citizen is, with maybe some aspects like pansexualism,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
something like that makes that kind of separates you?
How would you sell this to a person who isn't
A
like a
minority.
straight cisgender what like anyone who doesn't fit the perfectly hegemonic
So
triangle?
that is a good question. Now I'll go back to a historical example and then build off there. I think that you know the story of Rom, Ernst Rom.
I'm afraid I
Ernst
do not.
Rom was so Ernst Rom was a homosexual. Was in the Nazi regime. He Many people believe that Hitler did detest his homosexuality. That was a component. Some people didn't. Some people didn't even care
Hmm.
within the party. And he was a member of the. He was a leader of the SA actually. So he was fairly high in. He ruled like a paramilitary organization, right?
Hmm.
So being fairly high up in the hierarchical order, a homosexual man who, I think there's even a rumor that he liked to cross dress. I'm not sure if that's true either, but theoretically, if that is true, along with the other fact that is known, would be an example of someone who, like, who or anyone else that may have like those kind of interests, be in
But
that different range.
wasn't he
He
murdered?
was killed. He was killed. And I was going to get to that. He was killed, but it was actually done primarily for poor reasons, right? It was done because the SA was planning a they can, if you read Hitler's War, Irving talks about how there's a subsequent paragraph that talks about how Ernst Röhm viewed Hitler, that he wasn't Prussian socialist enough, meaning that he didn't follow like Ernst Röhm was more economically associated with the left. There was catering to the interests of the right. So you had that
So
branch development. That was because of power.
the most a gay American could hope for is to survive if they're useful to the state, but then to be killed the moment they're no longer useful.
Again, it was done. It was done based on the purposes of power.
Well,
So
sure, but a
there were
lot of
plenty
gay
of.
people were literally holocausted. So it's not like the only gay people who were killed due to political expediency. They were
I'm
killed because
gonna.
they were gay.
Do you know how many were? And I don't deny the Holocaust. Okay, I
Wait,
don't.
wait, how many people?
So
Wait, what's your
how many
number?
people were? I don't know how many people. Number 6 million Jews, 11 million in total,
Okay, all
including
right, yeah,
gypsies, all
it's
this.
what
Right.
I've heard.
Homosexuals. I don't know how. I think one of the figures I heard that it was between 16,000 to over 30,000 in Germany. I don't know how many all across Europe. If you could do a quick search.
Yeah, I think any number of people being holocausted for being gay is probably too many people for my
Right,
comfort.
but if you compare that number to the amount of, for example, political communists, in that case, a lot
But
of
that's
it
because it's
was.
easier to hide being gay, right? Like you
No,
just.
a lot of it was because of politicization of homosexuality, which is an important component of something I do not agree with. I do not agree that politicizing sexuality is necessarily component of something that you want to see in a healthy society. I agree.
But earlier you were praising Hitler for like having bigger bathtubs so women could give birth. Isn't that politicizing heterosexuality?
It's not. It's politicizing the foundation of like a traditional family, right? So there
Wait,
is
wait,
so
wait, wait.
so
But you,
now
but you've, wait, wait. But you've begged the question there. A traditional family. That's
right,
heterosexuality.
right. I never denied that placing the traditional heteronormative structure above other structure. So I never desired that politicizing that range of thought was atypical.
Okay,
What
yeah.
I
So you're
do
fine
believe
with
is atypical.
politicizing sexuality as long as it's the right sexuality, right?
Well, that begs the question because at some point you're right there. But when I consider politicizing sexuality, I refer more to the politicization of the oppression. So there's like how
Well, yeah, because
now
straights
when you
aren't
look at
oppressed, so of course they would never meet that threshold. Yeah.
right,
If you only say it's wrong to politicize sexuality and the oppression thereof, then that's only going to affect sexual minorities.
but I'm gonna finish by saying that you look at today with like pride parades, right, and the kind of organization that goes into that. Um, a lot of those instances, not all, but in a lot of those instances, you see like the wild displays and messages being that particularly cater towards the idea that there is direct state that like there's direct oppression associated with the act of being homosexual
Yeah, there is. I
or
mean,
in
in
any of these
most of
communities.
America, yeah, not like probably not in like Seattle or something, like for the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
part, but
definitely. And another component of that is that there's an intersectionality component of LGBTQ communities, right?
hmm
There's not an intersectionality component to, and this does have to be with it being a norm, and it's always going to be the norm. Okay, and I mean it's just because of
what's going to be the
biology,
norm?
right? Um, not the framework behind traditional family values, but the idea of a man and woman coming together to procreate is going to be like it's a biological framework behind our existence.
Well, sure, but
I mean,
so was like rape back in the day, right? Like I'm pretty sure the farther back in history they go, like the more babies were conceived without the consent of the woman, right? It seems weird to like decide which types of social organization are legitimate based on what the biological like state of humanity is.
the point about covering the biological state is to emphasize that so something like rape is not doesn't like forcing a woman to have sex with you does not um it doesn't create more babies. But besides, like like you can do that consensually and create children. The act of rape is just a way of achieving that. That is demented. It's socially demented. I
Well,
mean,
wait. I mean, you're the one who just kind of defended like gays being sent to the Holocaust by saying it wasn't that many of them, right? So I don't know if we want to start
no, no, no.
making moral
I was saying that
judgments
like a lot of
about
them
what's
were
demented.
a lot of them were rally organizers. Right? A lot of them were people that against the state.
Yeah, against the
Like, and I mean,
homophobic state. Yeah, it's
yeah, but so how many? But how many people do you think that were homosexuals in Germany or across Europe, and even like areas where of hot like hot spots of expressionism, like Paris, for example? How many people do you think across Europe were repressed homosexuals
probably a
around the
lot.
regime? Probably
Probably
millions.
almost all of them. Wait, yeah, if you were in Nazi occupied territory and you went to a local pub and said like, "Yeah, I'm gay. I love sucking dicks." Like, you would be killed. It wasn't just like you have to do a pride parade. Like all of them had to be in the closet because the alternative was to be killed.
That's
Yeah.
I know
Well,
you're
yeah,
setting a
that's
position
like
here. I wouldn't
that's
say that I would
standard.
approach it
Yeah.
with killed.
Well,
I wouldn't
or
say I'd
maybe
approach it with
maybe
death.
arrested and tortured in jail. Sure, like maybe that too. Like that's
Okay,
also an
so
option.
I mean, you're setting a standard. So if I say yes, then what it looks like.
Well,
But
I mean
I'm just gonna say
that is what happened. So yeah, like yeah, if you have a state that is going to holocaust people for being gay and for protesting the homophobia of the government, and a state which does not regard human rights as sacrosanct and which believes gays are subhumans, like yeah, these people are going to be killed if they're not in the closet. I mean, that's a pretty natural consequence of those political uh, conditions.
Right, but and those are political conditions in Germany, mind you. So like, if I were to say in this particular context of whatever we would deploy in this context, um, homosexuals theoretically would have to some expressions of, and I'm trying to be civil here, of course, but they'd have to repress some aspects of their homosexuality and maybe some other aspects of their associated sexualities, because it's not a heteronormative idea in the state. That's
Well,
absolutely
yeah, yeah,
something I
but
admit to.
okay, but then I have to bring us back to our original point. Why the fuck would any like gay person want to get behind your political positions if you could do this in America? Because I asked you like, how do you bring other people
Because
in?
not every the idea is that not every gay person would be sworn to their sexuality. Yeah, and that's
Wait, do you think
it,
they're gonna stop being gay?
I wouldn't say they'd stop being gay. I just said that they'd maybe stop talking about it, because it's not. If you're trying to cover wider social issues
Why
aside
can't
from
they just
sexuality,
why can't they just be gay though?
you can. No, nobody's stopping them from
No, no,
being
but
gay.
but with freedom of speech and everything, like so they can just be loudly gay, like the way straight people can be loudly straight. It doesn't. That's the
Well,
weird. That's the weird thing to me. It seems like a weird hill to die on because like gay people don't actually hurt society in any way. If you want to have like a hyper concentrated fascist state, you can make arguments that immigration hurts that or that cultural heterogeneity hurts that. But like gay people do like no, they just like they're just
and
chilling.
homosexuality, right? It's not particularly that is of concern. If it was mainly that, and again, I'll go back to the intersectionality. It was mainly that you had homosexualities, or sorry, homosexuals in one particular like level of containment in their own thought, in their own sexuality, that would be fine. You don't see straights an intersectional field as much as you do with the LGBTQ. Well, the
Wait, straight people are
LGBTQ,
super loud about being straight. Straight people are the
no, I
loudest.
never denied they were. I'm just saying that with homosexuality doesn't stop at homosexuality. Homosexuals are associated more. Straight people are often, they're more associated with other types of niche sexual interests,
Wait, like
right?
what?
Well, first, you have, what I've seen, they have a lot of associated with like pansexualism. They have trans
We
rights
can
activism.
probably
There's
fit
another,
we can probably fit bi and pan people under like the gay umbrella since it means like
right,
non-heterosexual
right.
relationships if we want
So
to.
there's a lot of like, there's a lot of
But what's wrong with
space.
those?
Well, what's wrong with them is that they tend to target whatever tends to be the norm of like human sexuality, right? And we know that that's normative. Usually, it doesn't always have to be marriage. It could just be a man and woman being together.
Why
Um,
does it have to
it's
be
usually,
the norm
well,
though?
well, I mean, it kind of is the norm. Like we've seen throughout history that see, if this wasn't the norm, you'd see a lot more people rebelling against, like, thousands of years ago, right?
Well,
If
wait, they
most people
did.
didn't want,
Thousands of years ago, people had very different relationship systems to the ones we have
we're talking
today.
about, well, in different societies they had similar
Yeah.
associations, but we're talking about particularly in the West, would see, I'm
But
going to
even in,
charge
but
something.
wait, even in the West, in before the Industrial Revolution, people lived in extended families. Not in nuclear families. You'd usually live with like the whole household. That we had very different conceptualizations of like marriage and living. If we go back before that, the Romans, the Holy Roman Empire, had very different conceptualizations of relationships. If we go back to like the Greeks, like holy shit, dude, in some Greek
Well, the
societies, like
Romans,
women were the sexually proclivious ones, and all the boys were all fucking like 11-year-old boys in the ass. Like they had very different ideas, you know?
right, but when you often, when you approach that from a historical context, like the orgies in the Roman Empire, and you look at that context, a lot of it was done from about the end of the historical reigns of these empires. And what you usually saw is you saw
Wait, no, wait,
the
no,
over,
wait, no. No, they did not develop these sexual proclivities towards the demise of you will never be able to find historical evidence that the existence of orgies or gay people brought down the Roman Empire. I
oh,
know
that's
that's
not what
like
I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that that there are other factors that led to the downfall of the Roman Empire that were not caused by sexuality. Sexuality is not the elephant in the room.
Right. So wait. So why can't
But
people just be gay
sexuality,
and
sexuality
trans?
is associate the overemphasis on these sort of sexuality is a
What do you mean
symptom
overemphasis?
of
We overemphasize heterosexuality in modern
because
society.
because heterosexuality produces kids.
Yeah, but wait. But gay couples can have kids, though.
They can adopt kids,
Yeah. So
but they
we have
but they
kids who
don't
need
produce
adopting.
kids.
Well,
They don't produce
Also,
kids.
wait. Also, they can. If it's a lesbian couple and they're both cis women, then they can have somebody else impregnate them. That's not too uncommon.
Right,
Or if it's a
but
gay couple
it's
and
not a
they're
but
cis
that's
men, they can
alienated
impregnate.
from
What?
that's alienated from the romantic action of creating
Wait, what?
a child. It's alienated from like the romantic action of a man and woman coming together and creating a fostering a child.
Wait, how?
That's because that's someone else coming into the equation. Um,
So? What's wrong with that?
well, that isn't necessarily how do I put this? It's not necessarily like within the
It
context
just
of
seems so arbitrary. It'd be like saying like, "Hey, I have a trad wife. I'm a boy. I'm a guy. She's a girl. We're together. She's pregnant. I'm going to do a home birth because if I go to the hospital and a nurse helps pull the baby out of her pussy, that'll get another person involved in it, and that would disrupt the beautiful bond of matrimony and child rearing. Like it's like really weird and arbitrary to me. Like what is it? What difference does it mean? Like if it's a lesbian couple and it's somebody else's sperm, like okay, so they fucking nut in you and then run off, and 9 months later you have a kid with your partner.
I,
Like
here's the thing about that. I mean, I'm not trying to regress from the point. I really don't fundamentally um care about a lot of this. Like
yeah, just
like about the
but
sexuality
I just want to
component.
say that's wait, but that's exactly my point though. That you don't care, but your lack of caring would still lead many to die. That's why I hate you. It's because this argument you're making, at the end of the day, we can run in circles forever. It's your feelings. You're just kind of grossed out by these people.
Oh,
And
I'm really
and
not. I'm actually
for the crime of them being unpalatable to you, like these people would be subjected to a state that would deprive them of their rights at best and murder them at worst. Like, and it's completely arbitrary. I've run through all these arguments. I could do it through you for like forever if I wanted to.
oh,
There is
but
no moral justification for this except we don't like them. Fuck off. And yet, like, yeah, like I don't know. It's not a super compelling like civilizational stance to take, but
so we're talking this kind of it kind of strayed off my main point though, right? My main point was talking about the intersectionality component
mhm.
of LGBTQ and how that is different in a lot of ways socially, and it's socially observable in a lot of ways from the components of straight couples in society, right? Because there is an aspect of minority there, and as a result of being a minority, you need to connect to other, oftentimes a survivable
But
way
that's circular
of just
logic. We need to
cohesiveness.
get rid of the minorities because minorities are minorities. Like,
That's not
pretty.
what I'm saying. I never said get rid of minorities. I said that there's an intersectional component to it, which means that homosexuality is largely something that you want to be not homosexuality itself, but the community surrounding homosexuality is something you want to be wary
Well,
of.
part of the community.
The idea of it being an abstract minority, you have to be wary of whatever social differences that might foster in that group, right? Because when you're a minority, you tend to be suspicious of the majority. When the majority starts exercising more of its ancient
But
powers or whatever,
the outcome of this is just we need to be suspicious of minorities because they were minorities when we took power, which means they were already suspicious of us. Like that's circular logic. If a bunch of Nazis take control of America, no shit the minority groups are going to be fucking nervous, but that's not a moral like justification for
no,
impugning
it's
them.
not circular. It's more that, and I agree that many minorities within the LGBT community, Q community now are very suspicious of like just the hegemonic structure.
I mean, yeah,
If we
right?
right. So that's an obvious. So for now, it's not necessarily whether they'd be nervous at the structure. It's more so how they would react. More so how they'd react to the well, I guess how they'd react to the system. They try to jump in. Maybe even there could be possibilities of you know some kind of desired social revolution to rid of the caste
Yeah, yeah,
system.
but
So,
we don't have to use like the fancy language here. Like, yeah, the reason they're discontented is because they're treated poorly, and the reason they're treated poorly under your system would apparently be because they're discontented. So, like, that is circular
so
logic.
why should we it kind of is because we're covering this point here. Why should if that is the case, which is true, then why shouldn't my question to you is why shouldn't we be
Oh, just don't oppress them, then
somewhat
they won't have an issue with you. Yeah, if you don't fuck over gay people, they won't be mad at you. It's usually how it works.
and that's a respectful point to hear, something that I definitely say take into consideration. But
You can hey, do you want to know a secret? You can actually do that with every minority group, from blacks to Muslims to
I
trans
have no
people. And
problem.
like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can that actually works on all of them. If you don't fuck with them and you let them live decent lives, they actually usually pretty okay. Like they don't hate the state that much.
But what's particularly interesting about this point is that when we have what constitutes treating a minority bad, right? Because if you're just as we see now, just that under a social liberal system, a weak social liberal system like now that we have, they're not directly oppressing legislation means any minorities, um, like gay people. Gay people can still be openly gay,
Hmm.
and they could still celebrate those proclivities they're interested in. They can still do that. They can do whatever the hell they want under the system, and
Hmm.
this applies to all LGBTQ. But
Well, it's cultural, right?
still,
I mean, that's what you care about, right? You want to be the
but
master of culture, don't you? You don't want to just run the state as some neutral apparatus. You want to preside over American culture.
that's the issue. You said there is key to the issue with social democracy and social liberalism. It's just state.
Well, yeah, but
There's no
that's the thing. It is true. Now there are some ways in which LGBTQ people are impugned legally. There are some states where you can fire people for being gay or trans people in the military, blah blah. But for the most part,
we just obviously had the whole gay just obviously legalized gay marriage basically,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
exactly,
still a thing.
exactly. But yeah, culturally, there's still a ton of work to do. A lot of people are just grossed out by gay people. So why don't we try to fix that? If you want to take control of the culture of America, if you want to build a stronger fascist America, why not make it in a fucking LGBTQ fascism, right? If you have what if you
Oh,
have like
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
civic nationalist fascism or something like that.
Absolutely. We
Right,
have
right. Within our borders, everything's fucking chill. If you're in the country, you're cool. You're Americans. And if you're out the country, I guess you're like fucked or whatever. But if you're in the country, yeah, homofascism, right?
definitely. I think that there's a lot LGBT or people that are homosexuals could on the LGBTQ spectrum could learn from fascism, and there are certainly ideologies that coalesce around that bench of sexuality with fascist rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, well,
And Ernst Fromm was an example of sorts. He
yeah,
wasn't he was somewhat open actually.
gay
I
people
don't
can
know
do
too
like
much about
whatever. Like gay people can be like any. You could be like a Gestapo, like gay dude. Like as long as you've got some like sweet like dick to suck or whatever, like you're pretty good, you know. I feel like gays could fit in pretty well. So as long as we're not discriminating against any minorities within the borders of America, can I sell you on opening up the borders too, or is that too far?
I think that with this discussion, I haven't yeah, I'm trying to open up more about this, and I'm trying to like see where I can go with discussion, like particularly where what kind of compromise that we can land on. And I think that we've gotten close with the association between like fascism,
I
right,
feel since
and civic
fascism is usually
nationalism.
just like all feels, I feel like if given enough time, I can move you over to anarcho-communism if I could just find the right key terms. I don't know. Like I like freedom a lot. Democracy is not doing the best job right now. I will admit, but I think that's mostly because state and corporations conspire to keep citizens stupid, so we're like complacent, you know.
So why do you feel that you can move me to anarcho-communism, and the ideological basis behind what I'm saying is directly opposed to those ideas, and it's not. I know that that theoretically you could try to convince me. I just don't see.
Well, you could be morally consistent if you're a fascist, but you would have to abandon believing it's good for people to be happy. I've thought about it a lot, and I think that's it. If you have like a different axiomatic
It's a
goals,
different ethics system.
right, right,
It's a different ethics
yeah,
system. It's
yeah,
more
but if you,
based on
but nobody has that ethics system. Like, nobody. I've talked with a
Well,
lot
it's
of
just not
fascists,
a.
a lot of Nazis. They fundamentally believe it's good for people to be happy. Then they arbitrarily designate which people are worthy of that happiness.
Okay, so can I ask again, like, because there's an interesting YouTuber that I think that you should check out.
Mhm.
Have him in your free time. He's called Cultured Thug.
I've heard
I don't
of
know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of cultured thug.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
the
that's.
one of the good ones, right?
Oh, he's not. He's just more. I should say he's getting knowledgeable because he's read a lot on
Yeah,
this, and I think that he
he's getting there.
understands. I think that he understands a lot of the ins and outs of the rhetoric, and again, I've watched some. I haven't watched all of them. I don't actually know too much about him, but I think that from what I've seen, he's a good source to check on about fascism as idea instead of something that's. Is what I'm getting from you here is that, like, when you talk about the ethics system of fascism,
Hmm.
not seeming to really.
I think it's fear
You're
and
talking to people. You're
insecurity.
talking to people that use like this very like this more postmodern ethics system about like how we view social relations and all that. You're talking to those kind of
Well,
people
there's
and
nothing postmodern about the
acting.
ethics system. I mean, maybe like transgender polycule couples are
But you're talking to
postmodern.
people that like alt-right types that have this basis of appeal where they're trying to adapt ideas into like this new world, right? This kind of this new world and how the things are with how people interact without completely replacing it. Fascism is all about completely replacing um, what are considered degenerative systems.
Yeah,
So
just
I don't
the
see.
issue that I have is that fascism is the ultimate degenerative system. Every time it takes root in a country, it makes the country materially worse until it inevitably collapses. It's a death
What
cult.
do you mean by materially worse? What do you mean by that?
Fascism invariably leads to a deterioration of the A, internal stability, B, the economy, and C, the geopolitical renown of a state. Fascist
So
states are like habitually incapable of like forming meaningful relationships with their
so the
partner.
economy so the economy and the in-state interstate relations um can you emphasize on those 2 points as to and as giving examples as to what would be a degenerative economic system within fascism and also the interstate degeneration. I get that I'd actually consider fascism particularly, and I'll emphasize on this later once you emphasize those 2 points, but actually consider fascism to be less susceptible to corruption than socially liberal
Yeah, because all
systems.
the
But
corrupt things are okay now. In a liberal democracy, it's corruption when like rulers get the
well, it depends
police
on
to
what you
kill.
consider
Wait, wait,
corruption.
well, wait. But
Let's
that's the
go.
thing. Like in my democracy, it's corruption for an elected official to put out a hit on like political people they don't like. In your system, that's just business as usual. So of course there's less corruption because all the stuff that was corrupt before is now accepted. But like, yeah. So with the economy,
Let's go. Yeah, okay. So could
yeah,
I'll go
okay.
back
Like
to it.
I would have to if I want to like really bring this argument to the table, I'm going to have to do a lot of research, but the war economy for Germany was fucking awful. The only like they never actually recovered from the Great Depression. They just pretended to by like waging war and plundering and pillaging all the territories that they
Okay, so okay, is it okay if I interject there, or do you
Yeah,
have?
yeah, go for it. Like but their economy was not domestically stable. The war was the only thing that was able to keep them propped up.
So I hear this argument a lot, right? And Hitler's Revolution goes, and other books go over that particular subject as well. But from 1933, right, from Hitler's chancellorship, for example, and this is just one example of a fascist regime,
Mhm.
um, up until 1938, you had an increase in like, domestic jobs. You had so from 1933 to 1934, there was the employment of over 6 million um, men to railroad factories and railroad facilities to work on the planned Autobahn construction system. It was actually started by his name Fritz Todt, I
Yeah, but
believe.
that doesn't.
Um,
You can get any number of jobs you
so
want if the state just like employs everyone. Like that doesn't. It's the state employing people, but
state
taking on
employment.
debt to do it doesn't really mean anything about the economy. The state can employ as many people as it wants to.
What happened is, and that gets to my next point, right? So what happened is with the industries, you had so the military didn't necessarily wasn't enacted or didn't go into war for the particular reason of paying off those debts. Um, but what actually happened is that inflationary policies occurred when they started overproducing in munitions factories tools for war. So the war actually caused economic downfall. Whereas
Well, no,
economic
no, they kept
prosperity.
their war economy going on. Okay, okay, listen. If we're gonna go hard on this point, like I would have to go like do a bunch of research because I'm pretty sure that like
So
if I did like an hour of reading, I could find like very definitive evidence. Like Imperial Japan was also strapped for resources throughout the entirety of the war, wasn't it? They literally
I'm
declared.
not.
They literally bombed Pearl Harbor because like we stopped like giving them oil or some shit like that because they needed it to
So
continue their
I'm
Pacific.
not saying that Lebensraum is effective economic policy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's the war itself and the overproduction of just resources to contribute to the war, and eventually the running out of resources, which led to the invasion of more territories or borrowing from allies like oil from Romania, or even campaigns, into the Caucasus in Russia. That that's the cost of a war economy, and that's what fascism became a war economy. But in its first, you could say 8 years of economic development, there's a lot of domestic improvement, social
Yeah,
improvement.
but Roosevelt did the
Um,
same thing here. That doesn't have to do with fascism. That's just basic social democracy. The point,
it
the
wasn't done under
ultimate,
social democracy; it was
the
done under state employment.
but
And
you can be a social
capital.
democrat and you can have state like refurbishment programs. The ultimate point that I'm getting at here is that fascism begets a fundamental irrationality from the people who subscribe to it. It is a
But yeah, I don't
what
really know
did
what
wait
that
what
means.
did Umberto Eco say? A constitutional inability to accurately assess the severity of threats to your state. So things have to simultaneously be like this grand conspiracy to undermine the whites, but they also have to be weak and pathetic and degenerate and easily destroyed.
So the way that I noticed that the way that you're approaching this argument and these arguments in general is you're approaching it from like a very third party stance. You're not necessarily taking even your own ideological position. You're taking this from like a psychological, socio-psychological analysis
Yeah,
of
yeah,
what motivates a
yes,
fascist.
fascism is
Well,
a
I mean,
mental
like,
illness. Yeah, I'd say so pretty
so,
easily.
so that's
There's
not
something
a
wrong
very
with you
effective.
too.
Oh, but I mean, as far as I know, I'm neurotypical. But there's no way of
Well, you
analyzing.
don't because you're a fascist. I don't know, like I don't know you
Okay,
personally. I'm not going to pretend I'm
that's not
like a
like
psychologist or
that's not
anything,
that's
but
not, that's not a mental illness in the
hey,
DSM-5. But
listen, the DSM
I mean,
6, we're gonna get it in there, okay? Nah, seriously though, like every fascist I talk to, there's like something fundamentally wrong. It's usually like a fear and anxiety, a feeling
there's
of
actually
entitlement.
no fear, anxiety, or entitlement. I feel. I mean, well, you could argue
But wait, then wait. Then
everyone's
I
motivated somewhat
bring us back to the
by
gays
entitlement.
then. You're willing to facilitate state persecution of homosexuals for you've still provided no reason.
Well, I was going to get into the reason, but we kind of got into. No, I did get into reasoning over the LGBT intersectionality and how that might be a threat to the
Yeah, but it's only a threat because
interests of
they're
the
a
culture.
minority.
Right.
But also, wait, what culture? Why can't
Minorities
gays be
can
a
be a
part of the
threat.
culture?
So, so like, let's use another example. When we're talking about serial killer, right? Serial killer, the minority.
Okay,
Serial.
wait. No, I fundamentally reject this comparison. Serial killers, by nature of their
Not
existence,
okay.
hurt
Listen,
others.
I'm not trying to ethically compare a homosexual to a serial killer. That's not my point. I'm trying to compare the structures of similarity in that a serial killer and an
But
LGBTQ
the difference is
individual is a
the
minority.
serial killer poses a threat to the world because they are a bad and wrong person who should be like dealt with state power. A gay person is of themselves no threat. The only way in which they could be as a gay person is if they are persecuted and feel the state as their opponent. Like there's a
Right,
degree of
but that's not.
instigatory
But I'm not. But again, you're focusing on the ethical
that, yeah,
comparison
because
as to why a state should
fascism's
react.
unethical. Yeah, I care a
But
lot
that's
about the
not.
ethics.
But what I'm referring to in this instance is I'm referring to how a system reacts to a minority. It doesn't matter what that minority is. It doesn't matter what the ethical basis behind that minority is. It doesn't matter what that minority has to say.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
So you
talking
would
about
want to
how a
persecute
minority.
minorities just because they're minorities, because there's a condition of being a minority which makes you inherently like untrusting of the state, and that would to you justify.
But the thing is that I'm gonna hark, and I'm going to go back to this point and provide maybe some more leverage on it. That homosexualities and people of the LGBT spectrum have always been minorities. seen in tribal systems, and I've read on this, even like in Native American tribal systems, there are systems where there is an LGBT hierarchy behind it. But
But
the system
red-haired people are
always,
a hierarchy. Of what relevance is this?
I'm saying that LGBTQ people have always been, whether at the top of the hierarchy or considered socially reprehensible, have always been a minority in the system.
Well, yeah, because
So,
there are less gay people and straight people, right? I mean, it
right,
depends on the society. Back in
bingo, that's
Rome, there
all
were
we needed to cover.
way more fucking people fucking around than there are in 1950s
But no, no, no,
America.
no, 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 no. Listen, it was because more people were expressing themselves doing it. It's
Yeah.
not because the average Roman person was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna go butt fuck this guy in the street." It was more done in the interests of, let's say, it was more expression. It was more
Well,
expressed,
the
right?
evidence seems
It's
to
okay to
indicate that
express it.
the evidence seems to indicate that people's sexual preferences are in large part informed by their environment, and for that reason, like living in a highly homophobic society might literally lead to there being less gay people or less bi or pan people than living in like a truly like gender abolished or sexually liberated society.
And if you look at, there's a research study I was actually examining a few days ago. If you look at like sexual preferences and their links with personality and disorderly characteristics, I believe that homosexuality has a particularly high association with openness to experience. If you're using like the big five factor model,
Yeah.
also lower conscientiousness. So,
Yeah,
so I mean, there
of
are
course. Because
so there.
conscientious people are more easy to shame by the state, and people who aren't open to new experiences are less
You're
likely to
saying that
have
the big
tried.
five factor model is also an invention by the state
No, no,
to
no. Sorry,
subjugate.
not the state, broader culture. So the more the like those two factors correspond to how like subservient you are to cultural standards. If you're open to trying new things, that means you're
You
more likely to
do,
defy, you
you
know.
do, but openness to, but what it does, I agree that what it shows is that it allows for, let's say, state to avert those personality
But
characteristics to make it more
why would we
compatible with.
want to? Also, that does a
That's not
lot of
what I'm
harm.
saying.
The math does show like there are like it's like you don't de-gay people. Like if people are gay, like trying to suppress them for that's just going to make them miserable.
Right, but that's but we sorry, go back on that point again.
Well, you can't just de-gay or de-trans people. If
You
people are
can't.
gay, right. So wait, so why
Can't.
oppress
These
any of
are.
these people? Why can't we just let them do whatever?
Oh, the problem with that is that what it does is that when you have, so I'll go back to this point. When you have, for example, like in Rome, you have a structure where there's unfiltered sexual expressionism, right? It's almost like it works in the same in the same way in art forms, right? Like in the 16th century, you had the Romanticism movement.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, when you analyze it from that perspective, it's like expressing those that like sexuality in that way leads to more questioning about biological, leads to a social questioning about biological imperatives, leads to a
Yeah,
social
good.
assessment about, right, but is that necessarily, since fascism proclaims itself as a hierarchy based on nature and by natural forces, is the idea of social questioning of one's own biological existence, is that
But that begs the
atomizing
question.
oneself
That begs
away,
the question too, because nature is
atomizing
full
oneself
of
away
gay.
from one's own biological instinct, is atomizing oneself away from one's own biological instinct and alienating oneself from that necessarily what we want to do as a
Wait,
society?
how are
Do
you?
we want,
Wait. How are you alienating yourself from your biological instinct by letting people fuck who they want to fuck? See, this is the inherently self-persecutory nature of fascism. You can't phrase things as they actually are. You have to phrase them as though you are being in some way victimized here. You are not being alienated from anything
I
by
don't know how
giving
that,
people
that
more
is that is
choice.
victimized. I don't know how I'm presenting myself in a
Well,
victimized
that
manner. I'm just trying to
language you
be.
used, being alienated from our natural state. That's the language like someone's doing this to you. But all we're
No, no, no.
letting people fuck
I'm
who they
trying to be
want
an
to fuck.
empiricist. I'm
Uh,
trying to empirically and
How are
analyze.
straight people alienated in a world that accepts gay people?
It's not. So people being alienated. Um, as I explained, it's because of the biological purpose behind reproduction, right? Male and a female get together, and this is
This
like
is
how it was
literally a
done.
fallacy. You know there's a name for this fallacy, right? Just because something's done in nature, that means it's good. Like Like they have it in textbooks, like in page one, like this is, you shouldn't make moral arguments this way, and they like sketch out like a little Adam and Eve next to it because those are the first humans, I guess. I don't know.
But if we're, but I don't see how. So what I'm saying is I'm not saying that because it's a natural way of doing things that we should completely ignore any self-questioning, about our own identities or about any of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that agreeing with a social system that emphasizes um, questioning one's own intrinsic or questioning the whole motivation behind human sexuality as a whole, like in a natural perspective, and
You don't have to question it though.
directly.
Just live life, and if you want to fuck someone, just do it, right?
But that's the thing is that it inevitably leads some sort of questioning of instinct. It inevitably leads to,
But
and it doesn't stop. It
the
doesn't stop at sexuality,
the
though. It doesn't
questioning is
stop at
only
sexuality.
there if they're being imposed, if an unfair social standard is being imposed on them. You would only question your sexuality in a society that tells you which sexuality is the one that should be default. You're what you're saying is that there's something inherently subversive about the natural state of man. The natural state of man, us humans, is to fuck whoever we want. Oftentimes that's the opposite sex, sometimes it isn't, but that is what we do. That's what we've always been doing. That's not necessarily subversive. The only way in which it's subversive is if there's some sort of authoritative system telling you that's not the case. What's subversive, what's really alienating, is a society that's telling you that the only natural way to have a relationship is to have a heterosexual one. That's the alienating thing. That's the
I would
anti-nature thing.
disagree. I would disagree that the only thing that's would be regulating this would have to be an authoritarian system. I think that um, as you saw in Rome, it was less the act of simply being within a spectrum of niche sexualities that led to any sort of degradation. It was more so the social association by proxy, which led to other like self-questioning philosophies,
Wait,
and this
but
is like something
how?
I'm going to explain.
But the
So,
patricians of Rome were conservative, even though they fucked a lot of butts. Like, clearly that subversive
right,
nature of their
conservatism
sexuality.
is not. It can affect literally everyone. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Okay, and that's right. So I mean, I'm not making a claim that anyone in particular is less likely to be a homosexual or any of that. There are plenty of whatever white cis men that are not, sorry, not white cis men, just white men in general that can be homosexual, that are of these a presupposed pure stock that could fall into whatever category. That's not my point. My point is that allowing that free expression, and this isn't only LGBTQ. Okay, don't get fixated on that.
So wait. Can I guess your argument before you
Literally,
make it? Can I
okay,
guess your
no, it
argument before you make it?
literally.
Allowing people to be free will make them wish they could be free in other ways. And as an authoritarian, you don't like that.
No, let me finish. I'm talking specifically about the sexual. So let's go, for example, to the sexual revolution, right? Sexual revolution doesn't only apply to LGBTQ people. It
Mm-hmm.
applies to everyone, even straight cis people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when we're talking about um, just all of that categorization, in my opinion, I think that when the sexual revolution started, there was a particular. I don't know how many people were involved in like the early second wave feminist movements that were involved in LGBTQ. I don't know how the movements intersected, but I know that there was a component of intersection.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that led to acceptance of or free sexual orientation. More free sexual
Yeah,
orientation
the natural
led
state of
to
humans. Yeah.
led to the degradation of family value system.
Well,
And with the
wait. Degradation to what system?
family value system, the
What
hegemonic family.
you mean the artificial, the false alienation of the family values system of modern day?
How is that? I can
You
see
can't
how.
simultaneously say that fascism wants to build its hierarchy on natural order and then try to suppress natural behavior in favor of modernist social structures. The nuclear family is like 2 centuries old. fucking whoever you want, how many times you want, is millennia old. So you can't simultaneously pick and choose. Oh, I'll take my modernist system here, and ooh, but this time I'll take some traditionalist
But the
values.
head,
And
but the traditional nuclear family that's actually been around for thousands of years as well,
as a
and it's
social
had
standard, it's since the Industrial Revolution. Before that, the most
as a
common
standard.
family, yeah.
I disagree, and I'd say that became a socially recognizable standard at that time, but it's always been thing that you see that was like almost like like a natural proclivity. It wasn't something that
We have a
people
wait. Our natural proclivity is tribal. Our natural proclivity is all the men fucking gangbang the women. Nobody knows whose kid is whose. The children are raised collectively. That's what we have a natural proclivity to. That's what I want. I call me a fascist. I want to return back to nature, baby. Reject modernism. I want to go back to communal living. That's what I think would be best.
Okay, so a tribal system is there are many studies done, various studies on tribal systems. It's a very complex topic. But if we were to talk about how those systems ran, the effectiveness increased. And there was an emphasis on regulating like who was with who in a system, right? So that kind of social stratification led to the buildup of system. It led to the buildup of stronger social values, which led to less focus on like just being baboons, right, and just fucking everyone, and it led to more focus on intrinsic on that other things that mattered more,
Yeah,
like building
but
tools.
see now you've moved your goalposts. Your initial argument is that you wanted to favor traditional, natural state of
That's
man.
not. I never moved any
Well, you
goalposts. I
said
said that
but you said fascism is about adulating like this hierarchy based on nature, and now you're saying that
but nature
actually.
doesn't have to prescribe the most atavistic examples
Wait,
of
that's my
communities.
argument. Yeah, so nature has nothing to do with this. That's my point. Let's just let people do
We
stuff
can
that
have
makes
the
them
same
happy.
we can have the same basis of argumentation, but it doesn't mean that we will agree on how to approach that basis,
Yeah,
right?
but what I'm saying is earlier you said your
Most people agree
argument
now
for
that
the
we can't be cavemen.
favoring of heterosexual people would be because fascism favors a natural order. But now I'm saying the natural order for most of human history has been communal living and fucking whoever looks pretty to you. And now suddenly let's abandon the natural order in favor of things we like more. You see, your pre-existing supposition, the axiom from which you're deriving like a value system has moved. It's no longer the same one that it was originally. This is this what they say when they say that fascism is asynchronitic?
Oh, but I didn't change my approach to this. I more so
You didn't
said that
change your conclusion. You did change your arguments for the conclusion in two.
oh I don't think I really did it at that point. I particularly emphasize that it's a common listen, it's a common agreement now that you can't return to these atavistic instincts of old, like 16,000 years ago.
Like what?
That's not going. It's a common understanding that even among like most primitive ideological circles I could find, like anarcho-primitivists, that it's not. We shouldn't return to our most atavistic instincts, like our most barbaric instincts,
But
like
like what? Like fucking whoever you want, or like clubbing women over the head to drag them to your cave? Like,
putting women over the head, fucking whoever you want, whatever you call
wait,
it. The,
Those are very different things. Do you see what you're
but they were
doing?
all they were all in association at the same
So
time.
is eating food. We did that back then too.
But
You
that's
wait,
not
you
the
see what you just did there though. You said, "Oh, making an argument from nature, fascism, hierarchy of nature," and then, "Oh no, we need to move past these impossible things of the past." Except one of the impossible things of the past is a thing that humans have been doing throughout all of human civilization, which is fucking whoever they want. Modern like the implementation of the expectation of like modern family values is a very recent phenomena. Before that, throughout society, there have been tons of civilizations that have had different sexual and social standards when it comes to child raising and family rearing. So like it's like hyper arbitrary. Like you think we can't return to people fucking who they want? I fuck who I want. Like I'm living the dream. I'm living the Ann Prim dream. I mean, not right now during coronavirus, but I mean, I could as soon as it's done. But like, it's easy. Like, I'm not hurting society. People fucking around doesn't lead to less babies. If anything, it would lead to more. It doesn't like letting gay people do gay people shit doesn't make less babies either. Because like,
so
what else
I
are they
get
gonna
what you're
do?
saying. I get what
I
you
have
were
to go, so
saying
just, you know, it's
about.
about industry time, so you'll probably have to hit us with the final meme.
I might. Is it okay if I join back maybe some other time the next time you're streaming?
I can't make any
We have a discussion.
promises, but you can stay in the Discord, yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll hit you up some other time.
All right, absolutely. I'll get you
Do,
to.
do, do you have any like room for even personal conversations? Like,
I have no free time in my life anymore. It's disgusting. I can't even talk to like friends anymore. So,
okay, well, see you around maybe like sometime, or just catch you around maybe. I
all
don't
right,
know.
be well. I hope. Hey, I know we don't have a medication for it out yet, but I hope you're able to conquer the fascism gene soon. Okay, we're gonna get you there. We're gonna get you some faith in democracy, some faith in human liberalization.
I can't say that it will happen anytime soon, but
I don't know what it is. It's gonna be something. Maybe it'll be made from like a frog's eyeball. I don't know. We're gonna find something from it. Okay. If the Amazon doesn't burn down, maybe the chemicals will come from there. You have yourself a good one. Okay.
Vosh.
It's the most amicable conversation I've ever had with an out and about fascist. That was fun.